What's good, everybody? This is your host, Josh Sheckberg, and my good friend, Mr. Kenny. How are you doing today, Kenny?
I'm doing well, Mr. Epic.
Doing well, doing well. New cigar, old cigar? You trying something new, or are you trying something you always liked as far as cigar goes
So
right now?
something I like. Yeah.
Yep. Last time we talked, I told you that I would go get tea from there's like an Asian marketplace here, and I told you that I'll
Yeah.
go do it. I haven't done it yet. It's really sad because yesterday I was driving by it, but the store was closed. And so, but hopefully next time I'll get some fresh tea. You know what I mean?
Maybe in 3 years.
Yeah, maybe in 3 years. That's how long it took us to do this podcast. So that's fair. That's fair. Um, dude. So our second podcast, to listeners out there, yeah, we're trying to figure out kind of what our direction with this podcast will be. My good friend Kenny and I, we've every time we get on some sort of a call, it ends up being a very, very long time. And my goal is to expose the world to Kenny because I think he's a very interesting individual. What's funny is when I said that, it made me think of South Park. You know that character Kenny in South Park.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh my God, they killed Kenny. Yeah.
Oh,
You
dude,
bastards.
dude, man, I can't imagine being the voice of that character because like he really didn't. It's like somebody just muffled his mouth and was just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But somehow you always felt like you knew exactly what he was saying, which I don't understand. I don't understand. But yeah, so yeah, we'll get started. Man, so there is somebody posted this last week as a topic that they wanted us to kind of unravel. And the more I ponder on it, the more I'm like, this would be kind of interesting to see. But essentially, one of my friends said, he said, when it comes to Ziploc bags, like the Ziploc bags you put like sandwiches in, crackers in, things like that. So the question essentially is, why are some of them sliders? You know, the one that slide across? And why are some of them are the ones that like, I guess they have the pinch lock. Is that what it's called? Yeah, it's a pinch lock.
Yeah.
Have you Is that for one, is an easy answer, right? Is that a first world problem? But two, have you felt this frustration and which do you prefer?
Um, yeah. No such thing as a first world problem, but
Oh,
if it's a real problem. But yeah, I think I definitely prefer the one where there is no slider. Um,
and we
yeah, I
would
prefer
definitely
the one with,
disagree on this. We definitely disagree. Okay, hold up.
that's
Why?
great. No, because with the slider, it's very hard to be sure that, I would say you're not always sure that it got everything right. So if you just trust the slider and it's broken, then, you know, you're shit out of luck. But with your fingers, you know exactly where you missed. You can go right back to it.
But the whole purpose of the sliders is the fact that they're connected. The two sides are connected, and when you slide it across, um they're supposed to, I guess, in sets pinch together and they lock in perfectly.
Yeah,
I guess,
that's the idea.
and that's usually the result as well. Versus when you do
Really?
the pinch ones, well, when you do the pinch is when you actually make the most mistakes.
No. If you're pinching it right.
Well, that would be true just about anything. If you do it right, then there wouldn't be an issue. The whole
Well,
idea
not
is
not with
what
not
is
with the
more likely gonna.
sliders. If you do the sliders, there's no right. You just slide, right? There's really there's no control over the sliders.
It's
There's just sliding.
exactly. So then that would mean less room for error. The more control you
Well,
give somebody, the more air likely an error will happen.
that's true, but it depends on the circumstance. The more control, so the slider has to be trustworthy, first of all. So it
Yes.
depends on just how trustworthy the instrument is.
Okay.
So if the instrument is not trustworthy, then um, you're shit out of luck.
We'll put it up to the poll. Maybe people that listen to this can chime in when we post these videos. But
And I
I
don't
feel
think
like
those sliders are trustworthy.
I think anybody with any level of IQ would agree that a slider is the most convenient, easiest.
That's funny. I was going to say that about the people
Dude,
who
I have.
believe in the pinch method.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Um, dude, okay, so I'm trying to think. So some interesting things have been going on this week that a couple people have actually asked me my thoughts on this randomly, and I thought it'd be a good topic for us to kind of start out and process through. But so I know you're into the music world. I know you know music. I know you know artists. There's a specific artist I know that you like that really stand
Very
out. One of them, I
shallowly.
believe, yeah, but I believe Kendrick is somebody you like, no?
Yeah, I like Kendrick.
Okay. Okay. So the topic right now that is going on right now is that he just in the Grammys, he just sweeped. I think it was like best rap song, best album, best like everything. Like the five awards he got was that one song, Not Like Us, right?
Yeah.
So people have been asking the question of like, what do I think about that? And I'd love to chime in what my thoughts are, but I didn't know if you had, before I introduce my thoughts, what is your thoughts on that song specifically? Maybe even like, what are your thoughts on, do you have any opinion towards the Grammys?
Well, I thought it's great that he won. It's a great song. Like, as the kids say, it slaps. Um, yeah, I thought he deserved to win. It killed. It did such a good job, and it
Yeah.
did it did exactly what it was intended to do, which was basically ruin Drake's career.
Yeah.
But um, and defend Kendrick. So it did a great thing. It did a great job. Um, yeah, I don't know that I have anything else to say about it. I think it was a
You think
great
it was
song
good?
and it did great. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. Dude, I had a lot of problems with that song. So,
Oh, awesome. Let's hear it.
so here's my problem. Um, it's gonna take like a left field, but so a little bit ago, there was a beef that happened with this comedian, Andrew Schultz. Have you heard of him?
It
Okay.
sounds familiar,
He,
but no, nothing comes to mind.
yeah,
Please,
he's on
please open up
the
while you're
he's
talking.
yeah, he's a really successful comedian. I actually kind of like him a lot.
Oh yeah, I know
He
this dude.
yeah. So he recently got into a little beef with um with Kendrick Lamar,
Yeah,
and the beef was around uh essentially Andrew Schultz was making jokes about, I believe it was about women, like black women specifically. He was making a joke
yeah,
about it,
I
and
remember this.
Kendrick
Yeah.
essentially was like, "Yo, we gotta keep." I don't know how he said it. I'm not trying to add, I don't want to make it more dramatic than it is, but it's essentially it was just like telling them like, "Hey, you can't be talking about black women like that, right?" And then Andrew Schultz responds back with like, "Yo, look at the hip hop community and the music you guys are producing. What do you mean I can't talk about women like this? Look what look what the message that's getting out there." So yeah, that's incidents. And then and then connecting it to the Drake and Kendrick, it's, one person is accusing one of hitting women, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
what Drake was coming at. And then one is coming after the other saying, you like underage kids kind of thing, right? And it's like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think they each produce like seven songs going at each other. And the one that won is Not Like Us, right? But at the end of the day, Drake won. No, no, not Drake. Kendrick won. Because Kendrick won, right? And then it's like, then you're listening to, so then not Drake, Kendrick walks up to the stage as he's receiving his award. And I was like, again, I'm not a Grammy watcher, dude. I literally, I got home late at night and I happened to turn on the TV and it said Grammys and I was like, sure. And then I saw him get his award. So I was like, oh, let me see what happens. So they're playing the song, the lyric to the song, and then get to the part where it's supposed to be like, the A minor, right? The crowd is kind of like quiet, quiet, quiet. As soon as that part came, suddenly everybody was singing that song, that part. So I'm sitting over here perplexed because I'm just like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, is this not self-defeating to the objective that we're trying to have as far as the one of the things that Black people, one of the things that we are known for as far as like in the inner city, right? It's like black on black crime, right? And in the hip hop community, there's this thing called rap beef, right? And it's like, it's this. it almost like it's like a creature that's like attacking itself, right? And it's like you just look at it from a distance and you're like, this makes no sense. And so the fact that this song is a song calling somebody a pedophile, essentially, right? To that language, and then that song wins a Grammy, and I think I mean, it maybe wins a Grammy for the lyrics and stuff like that, but a sub I mean, it's a very catchy song. The beat is the beat is unbelievable. Like
Yeah,
you could remove the lyrics, and you still would be bumping the beat because it's just that
yeah,
catchy. But I think for me, it, it's kind of hard. Like I'm not as excited as everybody is because I just feel like, yeah, you may win over here, but are you promoting a certain belief that people already have about our people? And now that we're having it on the highest stage, and now everybody's chanting it, and when everybody chants it, you're also downplaying what's actually this person's being accused of, if it is true. So I don't know. Give me your thoughts.
okay.
I can expound more, but
No, no, no. I think so. First of all, I think what you're saying makes sense, right? However, I'll say this. That's a part of hip hop. That's not what hip hop is totally about, but that's a subsection of hip hop. The beef, the going back and forth and challenging each other lyrically, right? And I don't think it's I don't think it's a problem. It's kind of like, okay, um, hockey. The sport's about, well, getting that small little puck into the opponent's nets. But every now and then they square up, and it's actually allowed, right? There's a to some extent,
okay.
there's hockey is known as a very confrontation and violent sport, right? Okay. The problem is not the confrontation. Hell, so I think it's allowed. I think that's fine because it's hip hop. It's part of what hip hop is about, and I think that um now no one said that. No one wrote the rules and said whatever you accuse the person of has to be true.
Mm,
That's not what no one said that at all. And it would be I would say that it would make sense that it should be true, but there's no rule that it has to be true. The point is to get the other person in a defensive position, get the other person looking like a complete fucking idiot, right? And that's what he did. Now, when I heard the song for the first time, I didn't think Drake was a pedophile.
yeah,
I didn't go around thinking, oh my goodness, this guy needs to be on fucking, you know, what's
yeah.
that thing called, like the Pedal Watch or whatever else. I
That's to
didn't
catch a
think that.
predator. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
No, until
I
about
didn't think so at all. But some people would take it seriously. But I don't think it's about. Right. I mean, if it's true, then that's a different story. That's a matter for the police, correct? But
correct.
it it was such a big it's such a big punch to his character and to his reputation, which is what it should be, right? It is. There's also um, there's also things online that kind of work for it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, so it's not. I don't think. I don't think. I think it's the nature of hip hop. I think it doesn't necessarily have to be true because there's an artisticness there too, right? Um, but if it's true, it's a different story. But I don't think
Yeah.
our initial thing should be, oh my goodness, this is true, and therefore it should be no, no. I mean, it's like when someone says your mom was so fat, she.
Yeah, you
How
say
do I
that to
word
the
it?
wrong person. You say that to the wrong person, even if it's a joke, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, no, but that's the point, right?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah, yeah.
point, is that
Yep.
you say to the
Yep.
wrong person it's no longer a joke, right?
Yep. Yep.
Or you say it in the right, it doesn't matter, but the crowd responds like, oh my god, damn, and it hurts
Yeah.
like, oh, the point is simply that the crowd is the crowd judges
Yeah.
who wins, right? So I don't think it should be taken seriously, but it is a smackdown. And as far as it being negatively affecting black culture, I think that's nonsense. No offense, but here's why.
No.
Black black people box each other. Some of the greatest boxers in the world are black and are still
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
And we get in a ring
Yep.
and we beat the hell out of each other
Yeah.
and we get a nice payday and
Yep.
everybody goes home.
Yep.
But there's also the stereotype that the black man is, more aggressive than the average bear, right?
But you would I hear what you're saying on that, but I think it's fair to say that there's a difference between I'm not saying should there be. Again, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there's a difference between boxing and when it comes to hip
Take
hop
care, sir.
culture, right? There's a difference between boxing and the hip hop culture in the sense of boxing, it's a controlled space that I mean typically death is not a thing that can happen in there, right? Rep,
It can,
it can. I know there's stories of that. What I'm
yeah,
saying though is like for some reason that seems like it's an own separate box. And I think when you look into hip hop, that seems to be something that permeates households. It doesn't just permeate music, it actually permeates everyday life of people. And that's why people would say music is the most powerful thing, right? No matter what space you're in, no matter what culture you're in, music seems to be one of the most effective way to get a message across anything. When you want kids to learn something, turn it into a song, right? I remember there's people that friends with that memorize books, and I was like, how do you memorize, like verses in the Bible? And there's songs. They like sing it into song format. So there's something about music that I think is different. Um, I get what you're saying, in that I think I get the boxing reference, right? But what I'm saying is, if there are these things that are on a societal level that we are saying are an issue with um, how people are viewing Black people, right, or how they're being treated, right, and how we are being treated. I'm not trying to say I'm not, I'm not trying to discuss, but it's just how people are treated. Um, and then you look at, okay, what is the space that's going to impact how people view? Boxing isn't one. Anything boxing, that's when it comes to sports, it seems like Black people are more worshipped in those realms, right? That's not an area that you see that, but that's a different situation. But when you come to um, because the the hip hop community, whether it wants it to or not, it it is a voice that a lot of young African Americans tend to listen to
for sure.
and tend to, you know what I mean? And it impacts the community, which then in there impacts the culture. And so that's why I think it's different. And so when you see, I think when I'm looking at the that award again, it's not a talent thing. It's not like that's not talent. Not like the music is not there. It's not. I'm just more saying like, is um, that adding or is that more harmful? But I also think it's interesting the point that you brought up, which is there is an understanding in the hip hop community that this stuff is acceptable.
Yeah,
But if it's acceptable in that space, then then what happens to people that A, may not understand that space, or two, don't agree with those things, right? So now they get to formulate their thoughts and they can't simply just ignore what's being said. Does that make sense? Like you can't, they're making decisions, whether they're on the inside agreeing to it or not, they're making a decision and, and having certain, um, yeah, I'm trying to be careful how I word this because I don't want it to come off wrong, but do you follow me?
I think I understand what you're saying. So, correct me if I'm wrong.
Please.
Are you saying that, okay, sure, it's acceptable. Let's just grant that it is acceptable within the hip hop community, and that everybody, not everybody, but there's a general understanding that this is not the, this is not um, the focus of hip hop, but it is every now and then it does happen, and this is like a sideline, like a side gig, right? But there's a responsibility on the artist's parts to not in any way affirm certain stereotypes.
Yeah,
Um, or at the same time, you don't want to make it to the point where this leaves the music and people actually get into, I know, different factions and end up hating each other. Like, for example, Kendrick gangs versus Drake gangs coming together
yeah,
or not being able to
yeah.
just sit together and rile up. And, so it leaves the hip hop world and comes into the everyday world where it actually affects the way people think about black people, think about hip hop. It actually affects how people interact with each other based on their where their allegiance lies, and it also affects how the general world sees the people who are responding to another black man putting another black man down, one black man putting another black man down.
Which is, so let me give you another example of this. When Cat Williams last year
Yeah,
had his epic communication, right?
yeah.
Where he pretty much told about what the comedy world looks like, right? And Dave Chappelle ends up responding back to him saying, "Why are you always hitting on black guys? Like, why are you always hitting our kind?" That was Dave Chappelle's response to Cat Williams, like, "Hey, this doesn't just happen in the black community. So why can't you just talk about it from a bigger level, right?" And so it's like in that instance, you have somebody like Dave Chappelle again, the goat of goats. I think Cat's also in there when it comes to comedy. Dave Chappelle essentially responds back and it's like, yo, why are you pushing our people down? I think I'm looking at the Grammys and I'm looking at what's being. I'm also one of those people that believes that I don't really trust when it comes to Hollywood, when it comes to the music industry. I don't believe
No,
that
you'd
there's
have to be
any good intention
crazy to
and
trust
thing.
Hollywood.
Exactly. So that being said, I think that, it's like why is this certain types of music promoted and other music are not, right? It's not like there's not good lyricists out there. It's just what's the thing that's going to sell the most amount of money and what's going to allow this cycle to continue. But what I'm saying, I think is like even, and I agree with the points you're saying, but it's like, is this another situation where it benefits the music industry to hail somebody like this song, a song like this, because it's gonna continue the cycle. It's gonna continue this thing, and that might be even to the layer that maybe I'm taking it is just like not trying to take anything away from Kendrick, his talent and stuff, but it's like, is this benefiting the music industry in a way that's more harmful than beneficial?
You know, it's always hard to judge whether something is
Yeah. Yep.
um, everything is, as Thomas Sowell would say, it's a trade-off, right? It's
Exactly.
very hard to judge how one particular incident could affect
Correct.
um, um, things moving forward. So some positive, some negative, more positive and negative. The scale
Yeah.
differs depending on what we're talking about. Um, but here's how I'll put it. I still think that this is hip hop.
Hmm.
I think if you're, I think it's every now and then gloves are allowed to be put on in hip hop, and two people, maybe more, they duke it out, and the winner is celebrated. And I don't see how. Um, Now, I don't think it should cross that line in the sense of coming outside of the hip hop world, and then people end up hurting, shooting, stabbing each other for these millionaires who really don't give a shit about anything besides their own
Hmm.
egos and lives, right? I just think that's dumb. But I think that speaking on, from a strict entertainment standpoint, I think absolutely hip hop artists should be allowed to duke it out, and the best man comes out standing. Like whoever, because it's, that's how we actually. This is another test to see who's got lyrics, who has the talent to look at you, size you up, and say, "I got words for you, mate,"
Yeah.
and deliver those words in such a way that everybody and the person you're talking to is like, "God damn,
Yeah.
I gotta go
Yeah.
to bed for a little bit." You know what I mean? I think
Do you
it's
think?
not my particular, like favorite art form, but I can't deny that I do believe it is an art form and it should be allowed to happen.
Yeah. I will say, I think the fact that it doesn't happen as frequently, like as far as like stuff like this probably typically happens more in the underground realm, right? Where people are trying to come up. It seems like it's more prevalent. And I mean, I don't know rap battles like that. Like I know Jay-Z and Nas at one point was a really big, right?
Yeah, I
There really
never.
wasn't any, there's never been a rap battle against Eminem that's even been close. So it's kind of, you know what I mean? I know people have tried, but that seems like
Yeah,
undisputed.
the only one that came close to like I think it came became like mainstream, right? Was like not Machine Gun, yeah, Machine Gun Kelly,
Yeah, but even
and
then, like and Eminem, right? I mean, you have I think Pusha T and you had Drake. That was apparently that was a big one. But I think yeah. So I mean, and then I mean you had yeah. So I think this one, from what I've read, what I've heard, is it seems like the Drake and Kendrick beef, their rap battle is probably the number one of all time now, just because the sheer amount
yeah,
of and how quickly they responded back to each other. That's insane. Um, Do you think that do you think that this is so weird. Uh, this is so weird to ask because it you know like sometimes when you ask a question you kind of almost like you're like, oh man, maybe I'm just trapping myself as I ask the question because like it's the same way I feel when people have a lot of money and people are like they should give and I'm like, no, that person should do whatever he wants with the money. That's his money.
absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like I almost want to ask the question of like, okay, do you think that as more successful an artist becomes that the less those kinds of environments should be stuff that they step into. Like in the very beginning, when you're trying to prove yourself, that is a tool that people use to one up people. But it's like once you hit the level that Kendrick, J. Cole and Drake hit, right? J. Cole even exited out of the whole thing. He's like, yeah, I'm and from what I from a long distance, right? What I know about J. Cole, that's not the kind of person he is. It just didn't
Yeah,
fit him at all.
that's at least
So I think
yeah. From what we
he
hear.
did exited. But it's like for Drake and Kendrick, it's like they're both one and two, right? And it's like, is it worth going to that level and going at each other to that level? Is it worth it? And at the end of the day, it's like it's not up. I guess it's not up for me to decide. Is it worth it, right? It's their career, it's their life. So that's what I mean by like I feel like I'm catching myself. But I sometimes also wonder if you're an advocate, right? If you're supposed to represent something, does that remove you away from that freedom that you once have. So that person that's really wealthy, right? If it's just somebody that's really wealthy and they're not submitting to anything, they're not held by something, they can do whatever the heck they want with their money. But if they're going around talking about how generous they are, right, or how they want to give and they're not giving, now you're actually putting yourself in a hole. So in the same way with like Kendrick, it's like, and I think this goes for Drake, is like once you hit a certain stardom and you start to say, I am for the people, right? And now I'm putting words in their mouth, I know, but it's like if you and Kendrick is known as the activist, like he's known as an activist for Black people. So it's like at one point when you have a title like that, does that mean that strips you away from that freedom to be able to do whatever you know what I mean?
But what I I think that um
I don't know if that's fair. I'm just asking.
no, I think yeah, every position one takes comes with some amount of responsibility. But the problem, not a problem, but in this case, we find these two people in the hip hop world, right? So, for example, if two golfers started taking wild swings at each other with their fucking clubs, that's crazy because it's the golf world. That's not acceptable, right? If, the same thing with, if you watch soccer, this guy Suarez going around and biting people, unacceptable. But in hip hop, it is acceptable. It is part of hip hop. It's a world of ego. It's a world of flash. It's a world of pump. It's a world of I'm better than you. I'm saying it to your face. Prove me wrong, right? And it's not, doesn't mean that it's the healthiest culture, but you have to, you have to admit that it is its own culture. And within that
Yep.
culture, there are certain unspoken, unwritten rules that if somebody who is to your own level or greater than you clowns you or punks or whatever, I don't know what how the kids say these days,
Yeah.
calls you out, right?
Yeah.
You have,
Yep.
you don't have to, but you're most likely going to respond because of the nature of the world you live in. It's kind of like how they say, in the, like, when you get to prison, not that I've ever been or plan on going, but if you get to prison, one of the best things you can do is, you know, either you stand up for yourself. You don't let yourself be pushed around because once you're pushed around,
It's game
it
over.
becomes
Yeah.
very detrimental for you, right?
Yeah.
And I think the hip hop world echoes that. There is something about, um, there is something about the bravado, the I can't let this guy or anybody who I consider to be whatever best me or tell me what I don't want to, it's a very prideful world, but that's the world it is. And within that context, I think that yeah, absolutely, the gloves come on and the boxing may commence.
So do you think then, like, let's take it a little bit further. Do you think that we're taking this in a level that I didn't think we would take us, so this is great. Do you think that if that's the world that hip hop is in, so let's say somebody's on the outside that doesn't know that culture, do you think that they need to first understand the culture and then make sense of what's going on? Or do you think that they're able to just look at it and make judgments from a distance? And does that make sense? Like I'm trying to think of like my mom or somebody that like if they're listening, like she don't know the hip hop world like that. So she's gonna make decisions right away off of immediate perceptions.
Yeah,
Do you think then that that's a fair thing for like if the hip hop community is gonna be like this, then everybody on the outside has all the right to kind of operate in any way that they want in response to what they perceive or how they make
of
decisions
course.
off of. Okay, okay,
Everybody has their own subset. Everybody's got their own culture. So, you know, my father-in-law is never, ever going to listen to hip hop whatsoever.
yeah,
He would rather pluck his own ears out. But here's the thing: when he looks into, if he let's just say he's the kind of person when he stumbles upon something like this, he's going to make a judgment because, well, he's a thinking human being, right? Um,
yeah,
so yeah, I think everybody should have the rights to either look into it to try to understand it if they want to understand it, or to just make a clear cut judgment based on where they're standing about what they're seeing. There's nothing wrong with that. The question is, do you want to be the kind of person that has the right judgments about the thing? Or
well
are
said.
you going to be the person who has the wrong judgments about the thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because it's opinions. Everybody, it's like this is like it's like assholes. Everybody's got one, right? The question is your asshole clean? Do you wipe, or is it stinky and covered in brown shit, literally?
I'm
So
reminded of
your
the
opinions
God.
have to be fair. They don't have to be fair, but it would be good if they were fair. It would be good if they were informed. But everybody
Yeah,
can yeah. We're
yeah,
big
that's
boys.
the we are. But I think like when I just see what's happened in the last, I guess I would say probably since 2016 when things started to really spice up, 17, 18, and I've been trying to understand. I've been trying to figure out what it's very easy to look at from my own angle and saying, what does the world look like for me as a black man, right? It's very easy to think about it from that perspective. I've been trying to think
Sure.
about what it looks like from somebody that's not on the outside looking in, and like the level of attention and detail and patience and humility that one has to have to understand the other side on certain topics, right? And so, as in the Bible, right, it says we should be slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to listen. Um, if you listen to some of the playlists I listen to in the car, you'd be like, who in the world is this guy? Because I mean, I listen to everything.
Yeah.
Now I don't listen to a lot of everything. I just like I listen to Disturbed, right? There's certain songs in Disturbed that I'm just like, it just gets me. Like
Oh, dude,
I listen to
Disturbed's
their
version of fucking Hello
Sound of
Darkness,
Silence.
Sound of
Oh,
Silence.
sounds. Oh my gosh, dude,
If they did it, it was unbelievable. Yeah, I like
bro.
Disturbed. At least that song, and
I
there's another song by him that's pretty good.
So here's what's crazy. I'm gonna tell you a quick story on that Disturbed song. I was doing Lyft last weekend, and I was driving
Yeah.
somebody. And it was a married couple, and the father. And so I was asking the guy. I was like, "Hey, like, if you guys any music you guys want to listen to?" The guy's like, "Listen to whatever you want." I was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "I could pick anything." He's like, "Play anything." So I played Disturbed, Sound of Silence. Right? I have no idea who these people on the back. I was like, "I'm gonna play this." The father starts to cry, but he's like singing as he's crying, and I was like, "Oh man!" And then at the end, they were like, the father was like. I think they recently buried his father, and that's the song that he had played for his father, "The Sound of Silence" by Disturbed. So, anyways, quick story, but it's if you listeners, if you have not heard that song, it is incredible, incredible, incredible. The range is
I think the
unreal.
Conan O'Brien version, the live version, is the best.
Is
The
it? I don't
Conan
know if I've seen
O'Brien
the
live
live.
version is unbelievable. I think it's Conan
Okay,
O'Brien. Yeah.
okay, I'll need to listen to that. I just listened to the Spotify. It is excellent. Um, but so yeah, so oh, back to this. I'm it's very, very easy to find yourself in a space that's an echo chamber where you'll say something and quickly people agree with you and you just think that's what it is. And I think
Yeah.
for me, there's a lot of red flags that people have when it comes to the Grammys. There's a lot of red flags they have when it comes to the music industry. There's a lot of flags when it comes to Hollywood just in general. And then I see some of the things that the Hollywood praises and says, this person deserves this award, this person. And I think for me, it's like, I understand it's probably the thing that makes the most money. And I'm not even saying that Kendrick didn't deserve any of that. I just sometimes wonder, is there another reason beyond the money that they're promoting in the sense of like, is this going to generate more money down the road? Because this kind of thing, oh, you can now win a Grammy based off of the diss track. I don't know if anybody's ever won a Grammy on base diss track. I don't know. That'd be something worthwhile looking into.
Neither do I.
But that would be an interesting. And now next week you have not next week, sorry, this Sunday, you have the Super Bowl, right? And the big question is that song going to be performed? You now have a lawsuit that apparently Drake has now. I don't think it's to Kendrick. I think it's to the label companies because I believe
Yeah.
they're both under the same label. But it'll be interesting, man. It's there is something about this that seems to be different than all other.
Yeah.
And so that'll be interesting to watch. So I'm gonna tell you a secret rap album that I want to be happening, and I don't want to know about it until it drops. And my hope is that Jay-Z and Kanye West secretly are working on an album. That would be like that is my wish is that those two artists are secretly in the lab coming up with an album. Maybe it's 2026 they just drop it, or maybe the summer of 2025. You know what I mean? Like imagine that. Like that would I think that actually would blow up the internet in the
Yeah.
sense of like,
I suspect so. I think they both have a good amount of followers and fans. I really don't care for Jay-Z's music. I've never listened to it. That's not true. I've never listened to it on purpose.
yeah,
Um, Kanye's music, every now and then I kind of fumble my way into it,
you know.
I prefer him to Jay-Z. But yeah, I think that would be a pretty good.
Would that be insane though? Would that be insane? Like, because they both split at the
I don't
peak.
care enough. I don't care enough
Yeah,
to
yeah,
know. But
yeah.
yeah,
Oh no, that's secret two artists that I wish would fuse together, or at least in the room together and come up
like
with a rap
Dragon
song.
Ball
I
Z
think that'd be fun.
Fuse.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z. What would a name like that be? Well, you can't really Jay Z. Now it's called Ye. It's not even Kanye. I got to work
Yeah,
on that verbiage. Ye and Jay Z.
Yeho.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's actually pretty funny. That's actually pretty funny. Okay, so um, shifting towards because I feel like with the music industry, you have the where it seems like nobody trusts Hollywood, nobody trusts the music industry. Now, there's also an opposite side of it, right? Which is, and you'll find this recently, where it's like, and I'm only gonna specifically talk about Christianity just because um, that's what we both ascribe to. So I think it's fair for us to talk about that specifically. But one of the things that I found interesting is that we look at this and say this is bad, and so then it's like, okay, then let's go join something that is heavily Christianized. Everything's Christian. I think I was telling you this a couple of weeks ago. I was driving by and I saw faith-based banking, and I did not know what to do with that. Like literally, like I'm pretty sure it's called faith-based banking. Uh, for listeners, I'm in Idaho, and so yeah, it's called Northwest. Yeah, faith-based banking. And it's in Idaho, and I was driving by and I was thinking to myself, okay, what does that say about all the other banks? Like, what is this bank offering that this bank doesn't, right? Or when I went to US Bank and they won an award for most ethical bank. It was like 5 years running. And I thought, can you imagine being the one that's like not on that list? You know, you just you just pull up to the bank. It's like, yo, I'm looking at the most ethical banks. You're nowhere near this. So what are we doing here? But I also know sometimes some of these awards are created with the intention for themselves to get it, right? It's this third party that does it, and they could be bought out and things like that. So I guess my question to you, Kenny, is I know people that would say that this is harmful. So then they'll kind of go over to this other side where it seems like it's the light. What are your thoughts on stuff like that, like faith-based banking or faith-based networking group or faith-based? You know what I'm talking about? Like I know listeners are about to flip when they hear this, but
I
maybe you
think
can
it's all
ease your way
nonsense.
into that kid.
It's
Elaborate a
all a
little
little,
more.
it's all a little crock, man. So first of, gee, first of all, um, it is the nature of institutions to be corrupt. It just is. Anything that you institutionalize will eventually be corrupt. Eventually become a fat bureaucracy that does nothing but take money from the public and disperse it among themselves. This is it. And luckily, we live in a country that tries to regulate those corruptions. But the Christian world is no different. Um, so if you look at the everyday church, right? It's fat. It's usually about the money. And if it isn't about um, the money is still, I would say, not particularly working for, as they would put it, the kingdom of God. And at least the majority of that money. Um, Christians like this idea of creating a world you know, that tailors to the things they believe in. So they have their music, they have their Christian music, which is all awful, awful music. Then they have their new movies, which are just terrible movies. Um, then they have um, their own specific podcasts, which is God bless them. And what ends up happening is the standards become lower because people just want to escape the world. So they don't mind anything as long as it is quote unquote Christ centric, Christ centered.
Can you elaborate on that really quick? I don't want you to bounce off that. So they lowered the
Okay,
standards. What do you? Yeah,
so have you listened to okay, let's just take the average Christian song. Is it a work of art? Is it amazing? When
you
was
talking
the
about
last
like
time you
the
heard a
music?
Christian song and you said, wow, that's just like the guitarist is amazing. the drummer, goddamn, the lyrics are just fire. Like when was the last time you like literally, like an objective scale, right? Like I'm not a rocker. I'm not like a rockhead. But when I hear Queen, I know, I know they're talented. You know,
Interesting.
I was listening to AC/DC this morning, and I know the sons of bitches are talented.
Yeah.
What Christian band can you tell me is talented?
Sounds like we need to bring some people that know those music a lot better than I do, for sure. No, I mean, I
So,
think you bring up a good point. I get what you're saying in the sense of like when you look at talent, raw talent, you're saying it's no longer there. Okay, so do you mind if I jump into this? I want to come back to this.
sure.
So I've heard people say that when you look at I guess it'd be, would it be the medieval times? I'm not sure, but it's like the peak of, I mean, where Christianity as a whole used to have the best music, used to have the best literature, used to have the best art, right?
Hmm.
And it's weird to, right? And then they would say that as time went on, right, you start to see the decline where your best musicians are no longer found in those spaces, your best artists are no longer found in those spaces. Which, I mean, if you look at some of the hymns, right, the hymns back in the day, hymns, like people would say that those lyrics seem to be, for a lot of people, they would say it's more powerful than the lyrics of today. They would
As
say
my
it's
friend
more.
describes it, the music of today in church, it says Jesus is my boyfriend, and it does sound very much like that.
Is that Mark Driscoll? Who's that? Was that? That sounds like something Mark
No,
Driscoll might have said.
it's a friend of mine.
Oh,
It's a man here, but his name is, I call him Mr. Fergie. Um, and he's right. It's all Jesus is my boyfriend music. The way he describes it is very funny, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going
we'll
to do
try to get
that.
him on. Maybe we'll try to get him on. Okay, so is that kind of what you're touching on? Is that if you're looking at straight raw talent, he said you're saying there's nobody in the Christian space that you would point towards and say that's talent.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's nobody in the Christian space in the sense that people who are specifically there for the sake of we are Christian music, so musicians. Like Lecrae used to have this thing, right? He seems like a very sad baby man sometimes. And he does this thing where he's always complaining about how he's I don't know, it's like, you know, a Christian artist who doesn't want to be recognized as a Christian artist, but rather an artist who happens to be Christian or something like that, right?
yeah, no, that's
And the
exactly.
world
I'm pretty sure
doesn't,
that's exactly what he said.
yeah, and the world is never going to see him that way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Craig. The world is always going to see him as the Christian boy because that's what he started out as. And that's what, but he
And that's what he
resents
won the
that.
Grammy for. He won the Grammy for gospel, best gospel
I
artist,
believe so,
hip
yeah.
hop. Yeah, yeah.
And
He's
so,
I know. God,
please go on.
no, I was saying I was just kind of maybe just adding to what you're saying. It's just like I know his big thing is he wants to be accepted in the rap community as a rapper or a hip hop artist, not as
Nope,
a Christian rapper or a Christian hip hop artist.
not going to
But
happen.
what's really interesting is because I know he's talked about being with Jay-Z, he's talked about being with Kendrick and all of them, and it's like
Sure,
he is seen in those spaces. It sounds like as that Christian guy, regardless whether
because
he
he
wants
is.
to or not.
Yeah,
Because he is. Keep going though. Keep going. So you're saying that the quality is not there.
yeah.
What means a good good?
So there's a musician that my wife really likes. His name is Josh Garrels or something like that. Garrels, and he does. He's a Christian, obviously. His lyrics very much portray that. But I think he's a talented artist. But he's not a Christian artist. He's that thing that Lecrae wants to be. He's a musician who happens to be Christian. And you see the reflection of that in his music. The same thing with Owl City, Adam Young, Fireflies. You've heard that song, right?
Bro, banger of all bangers, dude. When that song comes on,
So
takes
I
you
kid
back
you
to
not.
your middle school days.
I kid you not. And so Adam Young is a talented musician. Talented.
Mm.
He's a musician who happens to be a Christian, and his Christianity reflects incredibly and beautifully in his music. But he's mainstream, right? He's mainstream because he's talented, right? And so what happens is those who want to be Christian, reflects Christian, and go to the Christian world, usually untalented, they go to a world with lower standards and see if they can make it there. And it's a really, really sad thing. So, um,
Interesting.
Christian movies do the same exact thing, right? It's all touchy, good feeling, blah, 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 blah. Good feeling, Jesus comes in and saves the day, obviously. And the story is okay. The acting is subpar. The but Christians like it. It'll probably it won't make it in Hollywood because the standards are lower. But it's safe. There's no cursing. There's no um, nudity. There's no the themes are very much you know exactly what you're going to be getting, and therefore people feel safer
Yep.
there. But it's not necessarily nourishing to the soul. It's not necessarily challenging you. It's not necessarily affecting you um, the way it ought to or the way it could, right?
Um, I hope people watch this specifically. At least I hope they make it to this part because I think this is. I know a lot of my friends that I'm close with. I know they'll. It's gonna ruffle some feathers, but I
Sweet.
think what you're saying, Kitty's like, I'll go. No, but I know you know that I believe you and I've talked about this about that. Um, so let me ask you this then: do you think that do you think that the issue is that Christians are um, well, again, before I ask that, why do you think we have lowered our standard? Why do you think that is? What do you think is causing us to be okay with not? I mean, like I said, we don't have the best musically talented people. At least
No,
if they are, it's not known. It's not widely known that this is where it is.
no.
Where back in the day, you knew Michelangelo was one of the greatest artists, and everybody knew
Yeah,
it, and you
but
knew
that's
who he
because
was.
Michelangelo was an
Just an artist.
incredible
Correct.
artist
Correct. No,
who
no, I get that.
happened to express. Not, I don't know about Michelangelo's personal life, whether he
Yeah.
was a true believer or not, but he did
Correct.
have, you know, Christian themes in his paintings. However,
Yeah.
um, and one of my wife's favorite artists. However, he was a talented artist, you know,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, he
and
was so talented. If he wasn't a Christian, the church still felt he needed to do the Sistine Chapel. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So like he was so talented that they're like, regardless of what faith he is, he needs to do it. And if it
yeah,
was a Christian, then that was the time when we did have the best. Um, so I guess what I'm saying is where do you think caused that disconnect where um I think the fact that Lecrae doesn't want to be known as a Christian rapper shows it all validates I think the point that you're trying to bring up that there is a difference between the two and even the standards I think are lower, right? It's like when I hear a Christian hip hop artist, I actually my ranking for him is nowhere near
yeah.
J. Cole, nowhere near Kendrick, nowhere near Joyner Lucas. It just isn't.
Yeah, that's
Why
why we're
why is that?
surprised. We're surprised when they're actually good. So, for example, Andy Mineo. Andy Mineo is actually fucking talented. He's
I
good.
like yeah yeah
He's good. Um, and they might say, well, he can never break out because he's a Christian. Blah 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 blah. It's like no, no. He's just working. He's operating in a world where he's a big fish in a small pond, right?
mm,
The Christian bubble is a
yep
very small pond, and he's very talented, right? But is he is he Kendrick level? I don't know, man. I don't think so. Is he? But um, so my point is that I think, well, to your question, I think it's
mm,
hard. I don't know when I don't know when it started. But I suspect that the reason it keeps happening is because of our understanding of our understanding of this thing called Christianity.
Hmm.
But the very Bible that the Christians read tells them that they are to be in the world. Yeah, set apart, but in it, right? And then but we think that we need to go create our own little Christian nation, our own little Christian libraries and McDonald's, our own little Christian, bookstores. And it's like, no, no, be in it, be in it, and just let your light shine. Be a son of God in the world you live in. You know what I mean?
So you're
But we
saying
want to go
essentially
make our
it's
own
like,
Epstein Island.
so essentially what you're saying is rather than having this space that we call Christian space, let's just see if our music can be in these spaces where majority of people are, like as in like the books, for example, rather than having a Christian bookstore, write your Christian book that you want to write, but let it be in a public, it doesn't need to be in this isolated place where if you're a musician, like I think Andy Mineo is one of those artists that I think if he wasn't I don't even know if 116 is still together, but so I'm to listeners, I might be messing up on this, but I think Andy Mineo, I agree with you. I think he's talented enough that if he was in the mainstream, I think he still would fare himself. I don't think he's up there with Kendrick and them, nor does
No,
he. I don't think he believes that either. But I also don't think he's down with like Lil Yachty and all them, where I'm like, dude, that music's. So I do think he's in the upper and not the lower because he does have raw talent. Like his talent could. Um, I do think though, there's sometimes that Christians can wrestle would be but immediately when you talk about cursing, my mind went to Will Smith. Remember when Will Smith won the Grammys, but like his whole thing was he doesn't curse. Like his whole thing was like, do you
yeah,
remember that? That was like back in the was that late 80s, early 90s? I'm not even sure. Um,
yeah, I remember that.
yeah, but people were saying that like there's some, or in the comedic world, right? You can look at somebody like not trying to open up more doors, but like look at somebody like Bill Cosby, where it was like his comedy was so good that even people that were not like his comedy was at the level that it doesn't matter what your background was, doesn't matter what your faith was. Everybody tuned in, listened to him, listened to us. But he was able to keep the boundaries that he had, that he wanted to set,
Excuse me.
right? Because he was also known for not cursing, but he's able to do it and perform at the
No,
highest level.
yeah, he was known
So
for not cursing on television. A
on
buddy of mine
television,
actually, this is just anecdotal. A buddy of mine
yeah,
interviewed Bill Cosby many years ago, and he said that when you were interviewing, he slipped up and he cursed, and he said, "Oh, I need you to get rid of that, get
really,
rid of that, because it's not good for the brand, right?" So there's a brand, the Bill Cosby brand.
yep,
I would imagine that not slipping roofies into people's drinks is also not good for the brand,
not
but
okay.
apparently,
Exactly, exactly.
but
And I'm sure if he could, yeah.
but my I think that Christians like Christians like to make a lot of noise, as though um, as though the world like the music, and they look down on the music, right? Like, oh no, that's bad music, that's crazy music, talking about sex and drugs and blah 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 blah. We don't talk about that. We talk, okay, sure, whatever. But the truth is that when the curtains are peeled back, man,
Yeah.
they're just like everybody else. When the
So
curtains
it's
are peeled
interesting.
back,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
So my mind immediately went to, okay, where is a space that Christians revere really high, but it's a very ugly place, right? And it's like, I would say the Bible. Like you read the Bible and it's like, dude, you name the worst things that mankind has done, right? And you can find some sort of it in the scriptures, right? Not obviously it's not promoting it, but it's more of just like, but God doesn't shy away from telling that story for a reason. But we, for some reason, have a tendency to shy away from that, right? Um, there's a guy, Vodi Bakum. He talks about how he doesn't let his kids read children's Bible. And so somebody's interviewing him, and it's like his whole idea. It's like, I don't need this to be watered down. Like, if this is true, I'm okay with my kids being exposed to it. And he reads them to them, just like everybody else does, right? Or sometimes people feel this way with kids ministry. And during Sunday service, they're like, no, the kids don't need to exit and go do something downstairs. The kids can sit up here with the parents and they can hear this message. They may sleep, they may, you know what I mean? But it's like there is this, there is a sect of Christians that I know of that don't want to hide their kids from. There's a difference between hide the kids from the world, right? Like there's things you obviously there's things that maybe you want to protect them from, but it's like, but the Bible does talk about things that are hard for people to swallow, right? But it's like, but it's there. So then, now when you look into the world, and it's like there's going to be things that are real about the world that's hard to swallow. And so when you create, essentially what you're saying, I mean, we talked about this with boundaries last podcast, which may not be a good idea to go back to because we're gonna have to try to explain all of it again. But um, so I guess I'll go back to where we were at within the music realm. Essentially, what we're saying is that whether it's banks, whether it's music, whether it's business that work, it's like you would say that. Um, I, I guess what would be your closing statement on that? What would be your closing thought on that? Would you just say that it's just a bunch of bollocks? Is there more you would add to that?
Yeah, it's a bunch of bollocks. I think that, the more Christians try to institutionalize things, the worse they become, just like the rest of the world. I think that's, um,
So is the difference that the world recognizes that it's an institution and just operates as such, and Christianity tries to act like it's something different, and you're calling them out saying you are the exact. Does that make sense? Is it
no,
like
yeah, you're the exact same thing. In fact, I think in many cases you're worse. I think in
what
many
makes it
cases you're
worse?
worse. What's worse? So there are a couple of things that make them worse. The first thing that makes them worse is this: you're saying that, okay, for example, let's look at the bank. I don't know this bank at all, but let's
Yeah,
just let's
yeah,
just use them as an example really quickly. You're saying, okay, as a bank, your duty is to safeguard the people's money, and with their permission, you may invest it to make money and give out loans and so forth, right? Okay.
yeah.
Tell me how is it that what makes you want to do that under the Christian banner? Explain. Well, it's
The
simple.
the faith based you're talking about?
Was that?
You're talking
Yeah.
about the faith based?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah,
Why do you want to do that under the Christian banner? Why couldn't you do that under a regular banner of just we are a fucking bank?
I got
Because
thoughts,
you're going
but
to be
I
doing the
think
same bloody
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah,
You're going to be doing the same thing. So what happens is they're appealing to your sentiment. They're
yeah,
appealing to. They want you to trust them, right? They've probably done the research and found out that probably in that area, God knows what, that um, they want to pull. There's a certain amount of Christian. There's some amount of Christian population that they can pull to them that can, I don't know, yeah, probably become, what's it called? Um, well, customers. So they're
yeah,
appealing to the Christian nature. They're appealing to your Christian sentiment to bring you in as a customer. However, they're going to be doing the exact same thing the world is going to be doing.
yeah.
The other, talk to me.
No, I was looking into some of the things, and I know if I read them, they're gonna set you off the wall. So I'm looking at one. It's called Christian Community Credit Union. It says, I'm just looking at their page. It says, build your savings with our Harvest checking account, earning an impressive high interest rate while advancing the gospel around the world. Our mission is to serve Christ followers to live and give more abundantly. We offer full service, digital banking, along with nationwide shared branches, ATMs. And when you bank with Christian Community Credit Union, you bank with your values. So, it sounds like it's everything that the bank does except Jesus. And in
Jesus.
some way they're progressing. There's Christian financial services.
Yeah, the idea is that, and the idea is that when you try, I believe that when you try to pull people in with a religious commonality, I think that there's a problem. One should not trust you simply because you say you're a Christian. One should trust you because you are trustworthy. I don't care if you're a Christian. I don't care if you're Muslim, if you're Buddhist. The question is, are you good at what you do? Second question, do you keep your word? Another question, are you, like there are
Yeah.
things that matter, and you cannot hide yourself behind the blanket of Christianity in order for me to forget those questions and give you the assumption, you know, that
So
you are what you say you are. Present yourself as, please.
I'm going to read you one thing that says our global impact, our cards that give to missions program has given us the opportunity to donate more than $6 million to Christian causes since 1995. At year end, cardholders have the opportunity to donate their points to missions and ministry projects. Many of those ministries reach out and share the love of Christ around the world.
Cool. Let me ask
So,
you this. What part of I
uh,
believe there's a small part of the Bible that says, do
well,
not let the right hand know what the left hand is doing, or something along those lines.
yeah,
So
somewhere in the Bible.
here's a Christian institution, right? Saying saying basically telling you what they give and how much they give, right? Which
Yeah.
if a human being did that, we would say, what a cunt. But no,
Mm.
it's fine because it's a Christian institution. Another thing is, I, do they give out loans?
Uh, they're a bank. I feel like they would have to, no? Let me look.
Okay, and do they have
Menu.
interest?
I see where you're going with this. I see where you're going with this. Uh, it's so hard to see, bro.
Of
Like,
course they have interest. Of course
oh, no, no,
there's
no, no, not
interest.
that part. No, you're talking about loans. I'm assuming they would have to because they have
Of,
credit
no, no,
cards. Yeah, business credit cards. If you
thank
have
you.
credit cards, you have to have
Do the
loans.
credit
Yeah,
the credit card have loans? Of course they have loans. The credit cards have interest. The loans have interest. Yet there is a very clear situation, very clear, right, about
yeah,
usury, right,
yeah, yeah,
within the Christian community. Now, I don't care if you're a business. A business has no obligation to follow religious standards. You
yeah,
know what I'm trying to say? But if you
yeah.
put yourself under the banner of that religious ban, if you put yourself under the banner of that religion, then are you saying that some laws within that religion or some expectations within that religion don't fall to you as they would an individual as they would an individual simply because you're a quote unquote Christian business. Therefore, the business part must succeed in this. So
So here's what I would say this to you, Kenny. I think I think I get the point you're bringing, and I think that it's very. So I'm gonna I'm gonna step to the right a little bit, and we'll come back. So one of the struggles that a lot of Christians have, right, is with the prosperity gospel, right? It's the idea that you give $1,000 and God will bless you tenfold. Right? Do you think you can outgive God? Right? And I know Nigeria is huge with that. I know Africa
for
just
sure,
as a whole. You can go to just about every nation, right? And you see it present, and it's very present in America as well. And so I know that there's a lot of Christians that would be like, I just went to a church recently locally. I was looking for a church, and they're trying to buy like almost a couple $1 million building. And I'm just like sitting over here like, whoa. And then they expose their finances. Again, I don't want to give too much away because I'm not trying to target that church. I just came
and you
one
shouldn't.
Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I just came for one Sunday and I just saw what was thrown up there and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then so you you have this concern in the Christian circle today, which is where's my money actually going? And how much of my money is actually being used for causes that are benefiting the community, or how much of it is going to dollars? How much of it is going to speakers versus how much of it going to the homeless people that we thought, we're saying we're trying to help out?
yeah,
So you have that concern, very, 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 that I think a lot of Christians would point to that and say that is a problem within the church, right? I recently started a nonprofit, and so I've been studying nonprofits a lot. And first of all, one thing I learned is there's no such thing as a nonprofit. It's
No,
just it just doesn't exist. And I didn't believe it, and then until I saw it, I didn't. I'm not going to talk about mine specifically for this, but um, well, maybe I will. So I have a nonprofit right now that every expense that the nonprofits have to pay, my personal business that I own has been paying. But every dollar that the people have donated to this adoption fund, it's sitting there. We're trying to find a family to give this to. So there's no dollars going in to me, but all expenses that the nonprofit has to pay, I'm trying to make it so my business, my other business, pays for it. Now, when I study nonprofits, one of the reasons I even went down this path is because of realizing just a dollar breakdown to a lot of these Christian. And again, we're just what's true about Christians is probably going to be true about just every other religious group. It's probably going to be just as true. And so, for all those listeners, it sounds like we're just coming at Christians. It's just like that's just who we are. So it's easier for us to talk through. But when it comes to the nonprofits that I've looked into, some of these strong Christian ministry groups, you start to realize it's like right off the bat, like 55 cents out of the dollar is gone, right? And then it's like, then you got administration fee. And then before you know it, it's like 13, 20 cents of the dollars actually going towards the cause. And so then in that moment, it's like, okay, is this the best use of my finances? Right? If 80 cents of the dollar is going somewhere totally different. So I do think that there's a lot of examples you can use to show just because you hide behind the label Christianity and just because you use Christian languages, right? When you look at the details, you start to realize this ship is it says it's aiming this way, but really it's going in this direction. And I go ahead. So you want to say something?
no, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so when it comes to the what's really interesting is I think we might have found ourselves in the same place when it comes to music, where we just say this Christian artist, and so as Christians we think, oh, because he is a Christian, therefore we like almost like raise his he suddenly sings better because he's singing it to the glory of God. He suddenly has a better business because he's doing this for God. Like
he's a
there
better
is that.
person. He's a better
Yeah,
businessman. He's a kinder human being. It's not. No, not at
yeah.
all. I used.
But
I
here's the other
told you
part
this.
though. But here's the
Talk to
part
me.
though. Here's the part.
Talk to me.
We are told in the scripture that everything you do, you should do to the glory of God. So, and that being said, and that's not to say that that needs to be vocalized or said, but essentially what ends up happening is if everything gets labeled for the glory of God, then nothing is for the glory of God, right? So it's like there's not really a space for, I know you gotta laugh at this. So I get the verse that you use where you're talking about don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. I get it. Um, but I think that in certain situations, like when it comes to fasting and things like that, I didn't know what that was. I had a mentor that described to me what it is, right? So at some level, it is okay for Christians to set an example for someone how to do something. There is a space for that. And I think that point, now where it becomes toxic, obviously, is when you're doing it for the glory of man, right? You're doing it to get some sort of praise, right? And then, well, what's the bad news? Well, that's all you get. It's whatever that man gives you, that's all you're going to get. Um, so I guess let me ask you this question: do you feel like, well, is it just that as Christians we have cried wolf so much to the point where it just means nothing now? Is that where we are?
I think that. I think it means nothing because it's supposed to mean nothing. It means nothing because it's always meant nothing. What I mean by that is the character of a man and the policies of a business are not what they are not found in what they say about themselves, but how they treat you, right? A man can tell you how good of a man he is, how generous, how kind, how smart, how whatever. He may say these things. A business may do the same thing, but it is how they interact with you that truly matters. It is what they do when push comes to shove. It is what they do when um, it is what they do that speaks volumes. So when a business or a person labels themselves a Christian, I find that it is um, I find that it is a waste of time. Um, I think that character and I think that action should speak for itself, not what we, not the label we carry on our sleeve, on our, what's that thing called? Name tags or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, um, I know you like giving advice and stuff like that, so give you an opportunity to give advice to people. But what would be your message to somebody that is in the business world right now that wants to do right by God? They want to run their so here's what it's interesting. I tend to I'm the kind of guy that tends to give people the benefit of doubt of things. Like I just even if I see something wrong, right? I tend to see I think this is where they're trying to hit. So I'm gonna give you a scenario of what I think where Christians might find themselves quite often, right? It's you start to learn language, you start to learn phrases in the Christian circles, right? It's all that you do, do for the glory of God, right? Whether you, I guess, I mean, that's literally a biblical verse, right? It's whether you eat, sleep, drink, like all that you do, do for the glory of God. You have this young person who looks at that and says, well, this whole time I've been doing things for the world, and now I've become a follower of Christ. Now I want to do these things for God. So I'm going to go start a business. How do I set my business apart from everybody else, right? And okay, I'm going to put Christian language into them. I'm going to start, right? Because words do have power, right? I mean, if you're going to create a culture, there's power to saying this is who we are as individual, as a group, as a collective. This is what our business is trying to aim for. Like you do all these things, and you're doing it. At least you think as an individual, you're doing it with the right heart. You're trying to do it for the right reasons. And then time goes by, and you said eventually the institution will collapse. How would you advise somebody that wants to that wants to run this business in a way that's God honoring, right? But they want to miss all the distractions, which that's a kind way of saying distractions, right? It's a kinder way of saying it. How would you speak to somebody like that? What would you say to them?
That's awesome. Just do it. I don't know. Just do it. You know. I mean, I think that's all I would say. Just do it.
So but it sounded like in our conversation that we were having just a little bit ago, it seemed like these things that Christians are doing, thinking it's God honoring, we just spent 30 minutes talking about how they actually can do quite the opposite of what you think it's doing. So that's what I mean for that person that's listening in. Like to do it, I feel like the default is just to kind of do what everybody's doing.
Okay, I'll say this. Don't be a cunt, right? Like, don't be a jackass. You know right from wrong. You know what I mean? So it's kind and who cares? At the end of the day, who gives a shit? The the world is gonna do what the world has always done, and Christians are gonna do what Christians have always done. It just doesn't change. People are people. But if a person is sincere in their um sincere in their just let's just leave that. If a person is sincere, then be sincere. You don't have to tell water to be wet. It's just, you know what I mean? If you're
Mm.
sincere, just be sincere. How it comes out, some asshole like me may judge it and say, well, that's dumb. But if you're sincere, who am I to say anything? Doesn't matter what I say. If it's insincere, then I'm right. But if it is sincere, then I'm wrong. But who cares? Just be sincere. Some people will put up those signs sincerely. Others will put those signs up for manipulation's sake. You know, I can't tell the difference between the two. You know, you meet a young Christian who's enthusiastic about his life and enthusiastic about what God has done for him. He will not shut up about it. God, see,
Mm.
but he's sincere. He's not
Yeah.
trying to do anything shady or strange. He's just excited, and I understand that. But there are other people who do the exact same thing and talk about it, but they are doing it so that you can see them in a certain light. So I think people grow and change, but it doesn't mean that the world isn't full of bullshit. I think the world is full of bullshit, and I think the Christian world is full of bullshit. I think the Christian world is full of more bullshit. You know? So if you're sincere, just be sincere.
Yeah. I would say that's one of the hard things within Christianity is like you have a target by which you can measure it. So when you say statements like it's more, I'm like I kind of agree with it because we actually have a standard that we try to live by. So when we're off course, you can clearly point to it. While the world does not.
The man who lies to
Go ahead.
you, the man who lies to you, um, and you find out. It's straightforward. You lied to me. I found out. It's done. Right? It's understandable. There's a sense of this is how people operate. We lie. The man who says he is a Christian and then lies to you is more horrific because when they introduce themselves to your own, silliness you believe them, when they introduce themselves as a Christian, they come with all the background implications of what it means to be a Christian, honest and kind and trustworthy and so forth and blah blah blah, God fearing. And when they lie and deceive you, it's much more catastrophic because you would have never seen it coming.
Mm.
You thought to yourself, this is truly a man who fears God. And therefore, when you believe a man truly fears God and he does a thing that is not God fearing, it it mars not just the man, it mars the man's image of that religion. It
Yep.
mars. It could, and I don't think it should, but it also could mar the image of that man's feet, the image of God to that man. And when we when we when the world does wrong, it's expected. When the
Yep.
Christian does wrong, these days it's expected, but it is
Yep.
um,
Yep.
because we hold Christians to a very high standard. We do. The world does too. One of the interesting things I saw recently, there was this girl, British girl. She was going around. I think she was trying to sleep with 1,000 men,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know what her name is. I think it's something Bonnie something. And she walked into something along the Five Guys in some. I think it was in England. She walked into a Five Guys and she tried to seduce a young man working at the counter. He didn't know he was being filmed, as far as I'm concerned. And she walked up to him and tried to seduce him, asked him if he would sleep with her. And his response was devastating, but beautiful. He said, no, I'm a Christian man, I don't do that. So here you have it. He said it, but he also did it in one clean moment. He said, no, I'm a Christian man. The label is there. I don't do that. And he had the opportunity right there, not knowing he was being filmed. I don't do that. The
And that
label,
was the end of that.
the
Yeah.
action, working hand in hand. And that was the end of that, right? And I think, but I look at that and say, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Of course, if you're a Christian man, you don't do that. And I applauded him. Um, yeah, I think we hold ourselves to I mean, truly, it's a it's a
Yeah.
pretty it should be a pretty normal standard, but we do hold ourselves to a high standard. And when we
I
betray
remember
ourselves in the standard we hold, then yeah,
I remember a mentor of mine back when I was in college. He told me he talked about how you know how when we say, "Oh my God," like my mom, everybody used to tell us, "Don't say the Lord's name in vain," right? And like, what the heck? And I remember this guy, this teacher. Um, he was like, Joshua, do you know what that means? And I said, he's like, it doesn't mean what you think it does. And so I was like, can you explain it? And he was like, yeah. He's like, you know, we Christians, he's like, we think like, somebody hits a home run and we're like, oh my God, and God's over there upset about it, right? And he's like, that's not what it means. He said, what it means is it means do not do injustice in the name of God. And so he goes on to elaborate. He says, we worship a God that is invisible, and we are called to be ambassadors of this invisible God. He said, when you, as a Christian, go do injustice with the label ambassador of Christ, right? What is that non-believer supposed to suspect about you? And not just even you, what he's supposed to make of the God that's up there, right? So he said, what it means is not that you can't say that. I mean, the Jews revered this so much that they didn't even spell it out all the way, right? But rather, what it's talking about is do not do injustice in the name of God. And I thought that was an interesting, and it stuck with me. And so I would say one of the things that I struggle with quite often when I do fall in some ways pattern, it's like, dang, I just did injustice. As a person that claims to be a Christian, here I am now living this horrendous life. And it's that's really tough. That's really hard. And I think at some level, the fact that it does bother is probably good indication that it bothers, right? Because the real problem is if it didn't bother, right? You're like, oh, I'm cool with it. That's what it is. So yeah, no, it's but I will tell you this, man, as a business owner that is a Christian, it is very tempting to want to spiritualize everything in a way that, if you're not careful, I think would actually end up killing your business. And so, but
I mean, but that's the thing when you say spiritualize everything. The question is what is not spirit?
well, I guess what I mean by spiritualize everything, I mean more of like, okay, I got to make sure that everything that I'm doing, that it's so. Um, I'm in the insurance industry, right? And so there's certain ways that insurance works, and there's certain um, ways that you need to run your agency so that's a fluid motion, right? And so it's like I can look to other business owners that are not Christians and be like, they're doing that a lot better. I should implement that into my agency. I don't need to first be looking, okay, is that person a Christian? Does that person have a Christian values? I'm just saying those are some of the temptations that I know I face all the time. It's like, am I running my agency in a certain way?
Yeah,
Um, but again, it's that misunderstanding. It's that constant verbiage that's used in a lot of circles, which is everything you do for the glory of God. And so you're like, okay, I need to now my office needs to have Bible verses everywhere. As you
yeah,
come into my office, every step, every little stone needs to have a Bible verse. That I know we're making more light of it, but I do think that I know that in my networking groups, I know Christians we struggle with this, where um, and I don't know how much of that's self-induced and how much of that is just the culture that we find ourselves in. But um, yeah, so do you have any thoughts on that? Besides, any more you want to add to that?
no, I think. I think we've beaten this horse dead.
I was about to, was it what's his name? Who's like, oh, Bob Ross. Where he always beat the devil out of it, you know, with the painting. Did you ever watch him?
I've seen maybe one or two, and not a full episode of his paintings, but yes, I'm
Bro, I didn't
familiar
know
with
that guy
him, but
was
not the
like,
same.
I didn't know he was like a straight warrior. Did you know that? Bob Ross was like, I think he was like in the Berets or something like that.
I didn't know anything. I don't know anything about him.
Oh, and he like, what was his big thing? Yeah, he was like, I forgot what his thing was. Um, yeah, he was 20 years in the Air Force. I didn't know that. I thought he was in the Berets or something like that. But
Yeah.
you know, you just listen to somebody like that, and you're like, oh, that guy probably has been painting all his life. Right now, now my man was a warrior. But what's that famous saying, right? It's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener at war.
Oh my God. Yes, I've heard. I've heard that.
But yeah, no, man. Okay, well, in closing, I guess we probably should wrap up. But um, I know last time you had the Chiefs beating the Philadelphia Eagle. Last time we did our podcast, uh, seeing if did you change at all, or are you still Chiefs beating the Philadelphia this week? Which I know you're going to be
No,
tuning into because you love the sport.
no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. Not changing.
Okay, well, do you have
I'm
Messi
sticking with it.
or Ronaldo as the GOAT? Who's your GOAT in soccer, football? Messi or Ronaldo?
You know, I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. I think I don't. I think I've always been impressed with Messi. And it was more intuitive. Um, Ronaldo seems like a precision machine, right? And Messi seems like he. I think Messi for me. I know that both of them are pretty
Yeah,
incredible, but Messi has an um aspect of cool that I like.
yeah, yep, yep. Yeah, Ronaldo strikes me as the guy that's always been cool his whole life, and Messi
As in
seems
what?
like the guy. Ronaldo just seems like the kind of guy that's always been cool his whole life, and Messi seems like guy. But I think their story is actually quite backwards. I think Messi was discovered at a very young age. Like I think he was from go. I think he's always been, and I think Ronaldo was the one that had the. I call it the Naruto story. You know what I'm talking about? It's like started from nothing, now we here kind of thing. I should be careful because I don't know Messi stories like that. But
I don't. Yeah.
um, man, dude, it's interesting like the times that we're in. Like from a sports fan, like I s- so I started watching sports 2001. So it's been 24 years now, and I'm like, do I live in the best sports era of all? Like I don't know how many people have an athlete where it's like from basketball perspective, it's like I got to see LeBron's whole career, Messi, Ronaldo, and he's like these are like greats of greats, right? You
Yeah.
can look at Mayweather for boxing. I don't know much about boxing, but it's like I don't know if every generation feels like this, but like now we're watching Patrick Mahomes doing things insane. And as a sports fan, I've gotten away from like I used to be like, well, that guy's not on my team, so I could care less. Now I'm like, I'm a Broncos fan rooting for the Chiefs because I'm just amazed at how talented Patrick Mahomes is. And some buddy of mine was like, well, how many do you want him to win? It's like, I'm okay if he wins the next 50. I'm here for the greatness. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a limit to the greatness I want to watch. And it's not like, even if I wasn't a LeBron James fan, I'm like, I hope that guy wins until he dies. Like, that's the kind of, that's for me, that's sports. I don't care who does it. If preferred, my team does it. But what I don't want is not great things not happening, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to watch a Super Bowl game that ends in 3-0, right?
Yeah.
And the winner, it's his first Super Bowl and then never wins again. I want to see a 3-0 win, but this is his seventh Super Bowl, kind of like what Brady did, right? It's I'm for the ride. Sports for me is pure entertainment. And the thought that somebody can be bored because somebody wins too much makes no sense to me, right? It'd be different if they were taking money from you, or they were taking something from you every time they won. That's different. You get tired of that, but it has nothing to do with your life
Yeah,
outside of entertainment. I don't know. Do you feel that same way with like when you watch sports or something? Do you are you on the side of greatness no matter who does it?
yeah. I don't watch sports, but I do catch highlights of just things every now and then. Soccer, football, basketball. I like greatness. I
Yep.
just like greatness. I don't care. I don't care. I
Yep.
think it's I think it's a spectacular thing to see somebody who is really good at something. Hell, even when you watch videos of people like,
No.
it's like bricklayers in India,
Oh,
and
dude,
the
I know exactly what
art's
I'm
phenomenal.
talking
You know what I mean?
about.
You know what I
I
mean?
like the ones where they're like just tossing them and it's just landing perfectly. Or the brick ones that I really enjoy is where they'll angle them out slightly, right? It's like hundreds of them, and then they're like domino effect, and they just it's like a whip, almost whiplashing because they do it
I,
so
I've
quickly.
so I've never seen that one, but I just the idea of it is amazing.
Yeah.
I like it when people are really good at what they do. The greatness of the thing is incredible to witness, right? And it it's part of the human story. Like we little creatures in this um, pale blue dot
Well,
doing phenomenal things with balls and coconuts.
you're talking about the size and immediately like where we fit into like the world and stuff. Dude, have you seen those maps of again, I don't even know how people have like photographs of the galaxy or what I'm talking about? They're like, this is the galaxy. And then it's like they zoom out and it's like, and you see that little dot? That's our galaxy within this
Yeah,
galaxy. And then it's like the next map. Do you see that? That's the galaxy of the galaxy of the galaxy that we thought was the galaxy. You know what I mean? It's like this, and then the fact that they think that there's an endpoint to this, that blows my mind, even the fact that there is an endpoint. But you just think of like how tiny we are on the speck of all of this. It's like I don't know how I don't know how that doesn't cause one to be humble. Like in the sense of like you just start to realize that like but another angle that I've been having recently is have you ever watched those videos? You're talking about India, so we'll just rant this out a little more. Dude, have you seen those videos of like I don't know if it's tigers or what it is or leopards, but like there's a video of a guy like on YouTube. The guy's like taking a dog, like he's going out to take out the trash, and like a leopard or like a tiger or something is like attacks him, or it's like taking his dog before. Whenever you get off, type in like India like animal attacks or something. Bro, there is no safe time, bro. Be bright early in the morning, middle of the day, late at night, bro. And I just thought to myself, like, dude, I don't know how I would live my life if I knew that a Bengal tiger or a leopard could just meet me in my car randomly. And like people live under this condition. And I'm just like, dude, again, it's another like when people are talking about like how bad it is in America, I'm like, for me, I know people look at the policies that are in place. For me, I'm thinking about the wild animals. That's all I think about, man. 'Cause I could deal with humans. I can deal with, what's going on. But a wild animal, a beast with no sense of rational, all it wants to do is eat. Yeah, give me the human. I'll deal with the human, man. I know we bad, but you know what I mean? Seriously, dude, I'll just be watching stuff like that, and I'm just like,
no,
God, I'm so thankful I'm in America. Like seriously, dude, I'm like, this is okay. There's another story. It was I was watching this documentary and it was talking about like the darkest places in the world, and they like rate them by light, right? And I might get the numbers backwards. Like let's say a one is really dark, a 10 is really bright. So New York City would be like a nine. Okay, just how lit it is. Again, I might have the orders back. And they were talking about there's an area in Africa. It was like I think it was like a two. in darkness. Like that's how dark it is, right? And during the daytime, they're showing you where these tribes live, and they live, and they have these big wooden poles, sharp edges just pointed outward, right? But now you know they're trying to keep something out, right? All across. And so then the guy, some guys there interviewing the people. And I don't know why he thinks it's a good idea for him to stay. You could just set the camera and go town, and then just come back the next day and just see what the camera picked up. But he feels like he has to be in this video for some reason. So he's at nighttime with the tribes. And in the middle of the night, remember, it's pure dark, right? Like we have never seen that level of darkness. There's a high chance people that are listening have no idea this level of darkness because there's so much light every day now. It's just hard to see it. And in out there, you can see like eyes glowing. And the reporters like talk about it, and it's like apparently like lions will like jump over the poles and like grab people, and you know what I mean? It's like, so imagine this predator at nighttime, absolute pitch darkness, right? And this tribal people have probably lived there for thousands of years. I don't know how many years, but it's like a place like that exists. You know what I mean? And I'm
Yeah,
over here, my work gets done at 8 p.m. and I'm like hitting the lock button as soon as I get in the car because I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? It's like it's a lit path. But it's like, can you imagine if a beast like that roamed around our city?
yeah, yeah. I'm
Anyways,
grateful for animal control.
um, I am very thankful for our desire as a species to want to keep evolving and growing and expanding, and I'm glad we're taking dominion over the earth
Yeah,
and not the other way
there,
around.
there was one that I saw recently. I think I don't know where it was. A man was sweeping outside the front lawn or something like that, front area of his house, and this huge tiger runs and slams into his gates and breaks the gates. I'm talking like this is a big fucking gate. Breaks the gate, and um, I don't remember how he responded to it. I was too amazed at what I had just seen. But yeah, I think, obviously different parts of the world have different problems. Back to our earlier thing about first world problems. Every country, every people have their problems. But let's just say that not all problems are equal.
No,
Um,
no, 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 dude, it'd be interesting to
some
know,
problems
like,
are more equal.
bro, but just like, dude, yeah, man, maybe I have like I think you and I have talked about this before, but it's like, whenever I hear animal attacks, my first question always is, where did this attack happen?
What we're
If
doing, man.
you know what I mean? Like if you get a shark attack at a public pool, that's a different conversation. You know what I mean? I'm like, damn, that's a tragic. You know what I mean? Because it's a public pool. If you get a shark attack and you're 2 miles out in the ocean surfing, right? I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that because nature is doing nature things,
Yeah,
right? If you get a bear attack, you get attacked by a bear and you're out in the mountains, right? And here's the thing, you're out there with a gun. You have an objective just like he has an objective, right? And you miss and the bear attacks you. I don't know what to do with it. Like I'm just being honest, Josh. I don't know what to do with that because I'm like, we say this is the circle of life. Nature is doing its thing. Now, if you're, you know, getting your mail and you're walking outside and you get attacked by a bear, that's a whole different conversation in my books. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. I know it's silly, but
No, I don't think
there's
it's silly. I think it's,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah, I don't think it's
there
silly at all.
it's kind of like when a human does something that's dumb, and bites them, right? And you're like, dude, you shouldn't have been doing that. I don't know why we don't have that perspective with animal attacks. Like, why don't we also have that same way where it's like, you were doing what? Like that guy we talked about last time who wrestled the cougar, right? He ended up coming out on top. He ended up choking out the cougar. He won.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? He won.
Yeah.
That's the epic story, and he got the glory that comes from that, which is he now reigns that mountain. I think that whole mountain should be named after that dude, right? And then his son has got to run that same mountain, right? Get attacked and defeated so that the family name could continue, because that's only the proper way to handle this. But dude, yeah, I was talking to a friend last night. We're talking about animals and stuff like that, and it's just like I don't think people realize how good they have it when it comes to like I understand again, I understand politically the challenges that people face,
Yeah.
but it's like there's people that face that and dangers of nature at the same time. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, yeah, yep.
Yeah. We have a lot of things that we don't have to deal with in America, and some of it it's like, hell yeah, I'm happy we don't have to deal with that. And others it's like, it makes us complacent, but I would take living here over, fighting for my life with a tiger. Oh yeah, in a heartbeat.
I watched a video. This was on Spike TV about I think it would have been almost 20 years ago. A Spike TV, you know how they used to have like when animals attack kind of thing. And I saw this guy using like what looked like an outhouse. This was like somewhere, I think it was somewhere in the Middle East or something.
Yeah.
And he ends up like going into the outhouse and like there was a snake inside of there. Like it was like in underneath the seat. Like it was like he lift the lid up and there was like a snake like slid. I don't know how that happened. Bro, I haven't stepped into an outhouse since. I don't do that, bro. I just don't do it. I was in Boy Scouts, bro, and we used to go hiking or camping, like week-long camping. Bro, I was a kid that dug a hole and I would just poop in a hole because I'm like, that's it. Like I just that's it. When if you go to the zoo with me, I don't
Yeah.
pet any animals. My girls, my Eden and Amar, yo, they be petting the chickens, they be petting the goats, they be petting the sheeps. It don't matter. I don't touch it. Dude, and people make fun of me. I just don't do it, bro. I just don't touch animals. Bro, it's crazy, man. I will, bro, there's not money you can pay me to go do those Africa safari that people be doing.
Oh
You know what
no,
I'm talking about?
no,
Bro,
forget that.
it's like, okay, there's a difference between in a car that's sealed and a Jeep with no windows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is the little whip gonna do to unlock? You know what I mean?
No, forget that. I'm sure they have safety measures that they follow, hopefully.
Oh,
But now
bro,
forget that.
I don't,
Mhm.
why would you trust somebody that much? And here's the thing, though, man. Like, yeah, people that I think there was recent situation where a woman was like in a, I think I don't know if it was a shark or a whale, what it was, but like she was like I don't know if it's SeaWorld, it was some aquarium thing, and like the thing like bit her hand. Oh no, it was an alligator. It bit her hand and started to roll.
And the
Like
guy
three
came,
people jumped
jumped.
into
Yeah,
yeah, people,
yeah.
and it's like, dude, he still didn't let go of the grip. You know what I mean? It's like it's sometimes I feel like we forget how ridiculous some of these statistics are with alligators. Like this thing could break a car. You're like, oh, cool. And then it grips you. And then at that moment, it's like, what is 10 humans going to do? You know what I mean? We
No,
already
at
said
least
how ridiculous.
so they got her out. They got that specific girl. If we're talking about the same video, they got
Yeah.
her out.
Yeah.
Luckily for her. But there was a guy once, the one that I saw a couple months ago. He was fishing with his children, and he caught a shark, small shark, and he was trying to get it off the hook, and it bit his finger and did the roll, and
Yeah.
took a chunk of his pinky, I believe. And now that was gnarly to see. That was it just makes you wonder. And he's still out there doing his thing. Yeah, and I like that.
Yeah.
That's dope. Um, But yeah, nature doesn't give three shits about us.
Dude, I'm gonna read you the statistic. A study found that India had the most predatory animal attacks from 1950 to 2019. 72% of documented attacks come from India.
Yep.
Bro. And then it
No,
says
thank
the
you.
suburban mongrels of India and Bangladesh are look at this, a hot spot for tiger attacks on people. Oh my dude, man. I'm gonna tell you this right now. I bet you there's no gun right issues out there. Hey man, I bet you
I
they be
bet
getting
not.
all the semi-automatic. Dude, I'll be like rocket launcher. You need rocket launchers. You need grenades, like everything. Dude, that would be an interesting TV show. You know how they do house, like they'll do like spouse swap or something like that, house swaps,
Oh
where it's
yeah,
like a couple, they'll switch for like, oh, trading spouses. That's what it was, bro. Imagine that trading spaces. So you take a young boy from, Seattle, Washington, yeah, some dude,
jeez.
right? And then you take some guy from the heart of India where these tiger attacks happen. You swap them for a week just to see how they both fare. See which one rings the bell the quickest. And if I ever got chosen for something like that, I'll be ringing them before they even come at my door. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we probably should wrap up, bro. This has been a good talk. This has been good talk. Um, well, Mr. Ronaldo, do you got any message to the world? Anything? Any recommendation?
Nope.
Books you're reading? Nothing?
Nope.
I will recommend a book.
Oh,
I hate
nice.
recommending a book before you finish, but Thomas Sowell, people, get with it. Um,
Yeah, I've been
dude, it's
reading
pretty
that.
interesting. You grabbed it?
Yeah, I've been reading it. I'm enjoying it very much.
He didn't strike me as the kind of person I thought he was growing up. I thought he'd be different, but like, yeah. Um,
Yeah,
it almost feels like it's an autobiography, but it's not.
it has that feel. Yeah, it's like an intellectual biography or
Yep, yep, yep.
educational biography. Yeah.
That's exactly. And then um, I have another book by him. I'll send you a picture of that later, when you get done with it. But dude, can you imagine if we got Thomas Sowell on this podcast somehow?
Thomas, he's somebody that I would absolutely love to meet if I ever had the opportunity to. Only a handful of people.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll write a letter to him. See what's up.
I suspect he's busy doing other things.
Something else. He's what, 93 now?
I don't know. I think he's
See real quick. Give me 2 seconds. I gotta figure out how to show what I'm
94.
viewing in here. He's 94. I mean, that's it makes you wonder. Like, it's interesting how like a lot of these. I mean, I'm sure he'll become probably more famous when he passes away. But oh man, what a voice. Okay, well, Mr. Noli, till we meet again, till we talk again,
Mr.
my
Rickberg,
good friend.
it was a pleasure, sir.
Hope you have an awesome day, brother.
Take
Say
care.
hi to the family for me.
Will
Yes,
do.
sir.
God bless you.